jump right into things. Thank you for having the slide deck up, Stacey. So welcome everyone. You're joining the July virtual learning session on a thriving natural world. And thank you for joining us and being willing to learn more about the vital conditions and the great work that our partners are doing across North Central Washington. We can jump into the next slide, Stacey. All right, so as I go over the agenda for today and jump into what we will be touching on during our time together, I'd like to welcome us all to just via chat connect for a few seconds and just answer. I believe the question is already in there. In 1 or 2 words, what's a place in nature that helps you feel recharged or connected? It could be an actual, trail or place or your backyard. So if you can just enter your maybe your name, where you're from, and then just 1 or 2 words on what place in nature helps you feel recharged or connected. And as you all are entering that in the chat, I'll just jump right into the agenda. So we will hear from Monty on the role of the vital conditions framework. We'll touch base on the thriving natural world itself and hone in on what that specific vital condition entails. And then we'll get to hear from partners across North Central Washington and a national speaker today as well. So we'll get to hear from Karen Francis-McWhite from Four Strands Community Partners, Marlene from Sustainable NCW, and Roger from One Health Advisors. Shortly after we hear from them, we anticipate a breakout session so we can hear more about how this work is impacting you all and how you all can possibly contribute to the great work that our partners are doing. And then we'll wrap up with a quick sneak peek at what's ahead for the network. So with that being said, we'll jump right into things. We can go to the next slide. And before we jump into the session goals, I just wanted to go back into the chat and just call out some of the areas and places in nature that you all have shared with us. So of course, Lake Chelan is in the chat. River Eddy, interesting. Bird watching along waterways, I agree, Michelle. Horse Lake Preserve, kayaking, river paddling. Yes, we are definitely in the right place for all of this amazing outdoor events and offerings that we have right next door. Hiking and hiking. Mine is definitely just catching the sun out in my backyard. I feel recharged with just that. Anytime I'm stressing or my eye starts twitching because I'm stressing, I know I need to go and touch grass and just ground myself. So that is how I will get recharged. Thank you all for sharing. Joshua, yes, you have amazing rivers up there. All right. Well, I welcome anyone that hasn't entered anything in the chat to read some of the insights and get inspired and share your own. So with that being said, the goal for today's session is to share the language of the vital conditions and share more on thriving natural world and how we can collectively support this important vital condition. Also to gain insight around environmental justice and how we can take local action together. And thirdly, we hope that we highlight the intersections of where food, nature, and human health cross paths, and just see how we can continue to do work in these different pathways and avenues. And then most importantly, lift up and contribute any opportunities that we all have to engage and improve this important vital condition. So next slide. And with that being said, I will turn it over to Monty to take the lead on the vital conditions and the important role that it plays in health and well-being.
Well, great. Welcome, everyone. And thanks for kicking us off, Veronica. It's great to be with you. And, as Veronica suggested, one of the purposes of this is us to kind of have some shared understanding and a shared approach. And that means some shared language around thinking about, our relative small and regional communities and how we create thriving experiences for all people and all places. And we know that those are inextricably linked. And I think we're going to hear that from all three of our speakers. Just a reminder of how connected we are to each other and how connected we are to our environment. And so thriving natural environment is a really critical vital conditions. And if you're not already convinced, I think you'll continue to hear reasons why that's true. And I just got off a phone call a minute ago with people from around the country that are organizing around the vital conditions, and people from high up positions in Washington, D.C., and people working at local levels in Idaho, California. And this is a moment of real chaos, and some would, I think, suggest cruelty in some ways. And, this idea of how do we belong to each other and how do we create belonging and how do we grow civic muscle, I think is the underlying ethos of this. This is not just a way of organizing social factors, but it's a way of seeing our way forward in times when things are really disruptive and how to birth something new. So I hope you'll be listening a little bit for that as we go forward. Next slide, please. So lots of different ways, and you're going to hear a couple different ways of explaining this. So even though we're talking about shared language, it doesn't mean we have to say exactly the same words in the same way. So there's different ways we might hear this, but this particular vital condition really talks about the assets that we all need in order to thrive, no matter where we are in our life course or anywhere in the world. And that includes clean water and soil and a healthy ecosystem, and the access to natural spaces that, tune our nervous systems and to really have freedom from extreme heat and flooding and rain. And I know in your particular neck in the woods, we all have had some experiences of what it looks like, to have some of these extreme conditions threaten the vitality of our lives. So, thriving natural environment, what we can do to protect it and sustain that is a really important part of the larger vital conditions. Next slide, please. And again, just as nature has always done from forever in all of our great writings and thinking, and it connects us to something bigger. It reminds us that we're part of something whole, that we are part of species as part of a larger environment, and we are in an interdependent world and planet. And again, I think you'll hear threads of that going through. So I'm excited about the three speakers that have gathered here together. And I think our very first one is Karen, if I'm not mistaken. And she needs no introductions in this region. So yeah, Karen's going to talk a little bit about this. And I think with a little bit of an accent on justice, environmental justice, and our ancestors. And again, as a reminder, the Thriving Together framework is really thinking about the next generation. It's taking both short-term and long-term views. And then Marlene, who I just met, and some of you know, is what an extraordinary resource she and her organization bring to this work. And then my longtime friend and colleague Roger Still is going to talk a little bit about some of this work and some threads coming from the national perspective. So without further ado, Karen, let me pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. It's if you see me going back and forth, it's because my notes are here and y'all are over here. But it is wonderful to be with you this morning. I'm kind of organizing my remarks around this topic. Like how do we support a thriving natural world through our actions, organizations, and networks? Next slide to get a little sneak peek into a little bit of who I am and what brings me to this work. Throughout my professional career, I think there's this constant thread of a commitment to commitment to the environment, commitment to communities, commitment to simply doing better. Like we recognize that there have been harms that have brought us to where we are today, but we don't have to keep repeating those habits. We can learn to do better, or as I sometimes like to call it, we can fail forward into new possibilities and new beginnings. So while I've got my professional brand, on LinkedIn, and Four Strands Community Partners is the entity in which I do most of my consulting and facilitating work across the region around diversity and equity, inclusion and belonging, skills, not skills, education, etc. But I also, at heart, am a gardener wanting to become a little bit of a flower and herb farmer. So my happy place is at a river eddy, but it's also in getting some vitamin G in the backyard. Next slide. And I got to keep on my own notes. So the framework for for a thriving natural world really features, like, these four elements here would be present in a thriving natural world. You know, we'd have accessible natural spaces, not accessible to be, you know, worn down and destroyed, but accessible to be appreciated, communed with, and nurtured as need be, because we would also have clean air, water, and soil. Our environments that we live, work, and play in would be free from extreme pathogens, and there wouldn't be these sort of extreme fluctuations in the environment that we find ourselves in. Overall, we're talking about a thriving natural world is a healthy and sustainable one. And so then how can organizations help get there, right? In my work, these are some of the things that I bring up with clients that I work with as they work to assess and improve their impacts and also help create those conditions of possibility for a thriving natural world. So it starts with identifying and facilitating industry and sector appropriate environmental impact assessments, you know, so to help organizations understand the benchmark. Where are you at now, so that you can figure out where you're going to go next, and grounding that benchmark in evidence and facts, and not just hopes and aspirations. Secondly, every organization that intends to affect change in some way needs to be clear about how they hope their actions will actually impact all of their stakeholders. And I think it's important to think about all the stakeholders, being aware of who, not just the folks who work for you, not just your direct service recipients and customers, but anyone that your organization touches is in many respects a stakeholder. So when you set a future state goal, something that could become your new baseline, that requires then determining interventions, determining the types of interventions that may be necessary to help all of those stakeholders that you've identified achieve that goal. There's some literature around this called targeted universalism. It's a really wonderful framework. We don't have time to go into it today, but I would encourage you to write that down and circle back and look deeper into it. Thirdly, humans often, we have especially in the West, we have a tradition, a legacy, I call it the legacy of Descartes, or anthropocentrism. My tongue is slowly working with me today. That they're essentially belief systems and practices that treat humankind as if we are distinct from nature, right? We are not. We are part of the ecosystems in which we live, work, and play. We belong to each other, but we also belong to the ecosystems in which we operate. And so it behooves us to steward the finite resources that we encounter and use, even at the organizational level. And then lastly, a lot of the societal ills that we are working to heal through our work, through our organizations, are rooted in the legacy and habits of treating some communities as disposable. So whether we're talking about indigenous communities that have seen their communities poisoned by industrial practices that were advanced by government and powerful business interests, or Black communities that were redlined out of receiving any investment whatsoever, or were crisscrossed by highways that led to the creation of high rates of air pollution, asthma, and even lead poisoning in the community and households adjacent to those highways. Migrant farm workers are often exposed to pesticides, really challenging living conditions, and long days working outdoors, even during drastic climate events like wildfires. So when I talk about advocating for and practicing environmental justice, that's what I'm talking about, addressing those harms and helping to mitigate and prevent them in the future. Next slide. Okay, so environmental justice principles can be summed up in these 5 core categories. We want to achieve the highest attainable environmental quality and health outcomes for all people. That's setting that universal goal and then building the scaffolds as needed to get everyone to that goal. We adopt a racial justice lens, not to practice reverse racism or reverse discrimination. It is a remedy. There's a long legal precedent. There we go. That's the word. Around remedy, right? We're remedying persistent harms that were created because back in the day and continuing in some circles today, folks have been racialized and treated that as if they were expendable, exploitable, and less than, right? So adopting a racial justice lens in the context of environmental justice just means we're acknowledging those harms, but we're also focusing on prevention. It reminds us that those harms will be righted eventually, right? But it also discourages and actively prohibits us from doing those same harms to others. So a racial justice lens isn't about taking one set of harms and lumping it on someone else. It's acknowledging a harm and doing away with that way of thinking, that way of being, that way of doing for all of us. Engaging communities meaningfully. Now, how many of you can just raise your Zoom hands real quick, have heard the mantra, nothing about us without us? All right, so pretty much everybody. Awesome. Well, and that's at the heart of environmental justice. So those harms that I mentioned before, these policies that treated communities as expendable, disposable, and exploitable, those policies existed because there were a lot of things done about those communities without them. Environmental justice corrects that. Nothing gets decided that impacts stakeholder communities without their active input from the design, actually from the concept to the design, to the execution, to the evaluation. So building in those practices is key, as is transparency. No more backdoor dealings, right? We're really about, environmental justice is about building trust, rebuilding trust, repairing harm, preventing harm, and just being transparent and accountable to the communities who are impacted. And so environmental justice in many respects is a component of equity. Equity, similar, we're going to keep hearing about this sort of universalist structure. It creates opportunities for people to achieve the fair outcomes. It doesn't guarantee that those outcomes, that everybody will have the same outcomes, but that everyone will have the opportunity to pursue them, right? So I love this little image here. Everyone needs to eat, right? There are barriers depending on a variety of factors. And if we're going to adopt an equity perspective, we provide the assistance necessary to address those barriers. So equity meets people where they are, that removes those discriminatory and exclusionary barriers, and really prioritizes helping communities heal and do better. Healing a harm, preventing a harm, working together to build a better tomorrow. Next slide. So as you sit with this and think about, well, this is all fine and dandy. What am I supposed to do with this? I have a couple ideas. So in the near term, if your organization hasn't completed some type of assessment, it could be something really formal, like the B impact assessment. The B impact assessment, full disclosure there, I used to work for B Lab a lifetime ago. They're the ones who created the B impact assessment. They certify B corporations, but they also work with nonprofits and other organizations who want to evaluate their environmental impacts, their social impacts, and their governance structures. It's a really great tool. But you can also start with something more simple, like just assess your capacities. What can you do in light of where you want to go? What resources do you currently have within your own within your own control? But also, are there partnerships that you can leverage? And in this region, we're quite fortunate in many respects. We've got wonderful folks like Sustainable NCW, and Marlene will talk a bit about what they do. The Yakima Nation, Latino Community Fund, Zero Waste Washington. One of my favorite places to spend time is Eastside Rebuild in Kashmir, even the Habitat Restore down in South Wenatchee. Fabulous, pulling things out of the waste stream and giving them a useful life. And Waste Loops, a nonprofit as well. Winston Composting. I mean, I can just go on and on and on. I love the resources that we have in this region. So even if you don't have them within your own individual control, you have a network that you can tap into, right? Secondly, how are you speaking your truth to power? Certainly facilitating community engagement opportunities, but also participating in public comment opportunities with the government bodies who are setting policy, giving permits, creating the legal and material infrastructure for the sort of decisions that will help us be better ancestors for the future and stop repeating the harms from the past. In the little purple pop-out box here is a little shout out there. One of the hats I wear, I do work with the Department of Commerce. There is a community involvement session coming up. Let's see, oh, that's just next week, about the healthy environment for all implementation at Commerce, and some proposed legislation that programs are going to be moving forward to the governor's office and then potentially onto the legislature for the next session. The public click on that link when you get these slides to access that if you want to participate. But overall, in general, taking advantage of public comment opportunities with any policy, proposed or actual, that relates to the environmental impact that you have to live with, work in, or play around, you got to do it. You got to engage with them, right? And get your folks in your networks to do the same. Ask your service providers and the contractors you work with, what are they doing? How are they measuring the impact of their practices? Where are they getting their materials? So on and so forth. And lastly, build in those systems of accountability for the commitments that you do set for yourself. Next slide. Long-term impacts. Now, this looks like it's a very busy image. When you get the slide, go ahead and please take a look at the link for 9lessons.org. This is a 9-lesson, not step, 9-lesson strategic framework that comes from a virtual learning series that was created in the global health space, but it is transferable to many other large social and societal problems, including environmental justice. So when you look at those 9 lessons, and I say lessons, not steps, because it's not sequential, right? We can make progress on each of these. So for example, at the very beginning, do we understand our cause and effect? That's why I like to start with folks establishing a baseline understanding of what is their organizational impact, or their organizational practices, and what are the impacts of those practices. That's looking at hard data, not just thoughts and feelings and hopes and prayers, right? So we're grounding our baseline and our goals in the actual. In the interest of time, I won't go through all 9, but sit with them, plug in where you can, and reflect on how your organization can take these lessons to heart and integrate them into your service and operation models, into your advocacy work, and even into your impact measurement. Next slide. And this is my last slide. So I didn't have my timer up, so I hope I didn't talk too long. But thriving ecosystems are communal. And I loved Monty's framing earlier. We belong to each other. Mentioned we also belong to the natural systems in which we live, work, and play. And so little parallels that I see between this highly ecological model and thinking about our network. You know, the individuals, the organization, right? The population might coincide with your service sector, you know, like. The community is certainly the community that you are operating in. The ecosystem, thinking about that, the ways in which the communities you operate in interact with the physical environments in which they operate. The biome is like our region because it's a large geographic area that looks at multiple communities interacting with one another, interacting with plant life, animal life. And the biosphere is really the global sum of all of that. The interventions and improvements that we make at the organizational level or even the regional level can and will have a significant impact into improving not just our current health and the health of folks that we get to work with today, but also it'll lay the foundation for a better future, making us, in turn, better ancestors that the future deserves. So that's what I got for you today.
Yeah.
Are we taking any questions now, or are we just kind of going through? I forgot to ask that earlier.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries, Karen. Beautiful, and thank you for. I think we're going to go through all 3. We'll be in some dialogue, and I hope you'll be able to stick with us the whole time because I think, yeah, this will be woven through. And just as you point out, this idea of target universalism and some of these other values is a lot of what the Thriving Together kind of this movement is. All people, all places, no exceptions, and really this ethos starting with those who are suffering and struggling most. And I think you captured it so well and given us some ideas around where we, might be able to really take action with, the organizations that we're part of. So thank you for being here. And maybe we'll just build on that momentum here. Marlene, are you ready to jump in?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really a pleasure to follow that wonderful presentation by Karen. I think she did a great job giving a description of this lens of how we view what we do and how we can do better. So I think that was great, and it's different than what I'm going to be speaking about. I'm going to share more about what my organization does and how we collaborate with organizations along this idea of having a thriving natural world. So I also briefly want to mention just again, thank you so much to Thriving Together for letting me be a part of this learning session. Sustainable NCW is a fairly new member of Thriving Together, and I really do feel like I'm learning a lot, and I feel like it's great that we get to be a part of this network. And this working on making these slides really was wonderful because I think we all probably think about our individual work deeply, but it was really nice for me to think broadly about my work, about how it kind of crosses boundaries and covers all the different beyond the thriving natural world and connects to the other vital conditions. So my name is Marlene. I am the executive director of Sustainable NCW, organization founded in 2017. We are a small nonprofit. We have 2 staff, though we are hiring our 3rd for the first time ever right now. proud to say. Our service area is Chelan and Douglas County. And really, our organization has been founded and the purpose of our organization really is centered around education, that it is central to sustainability in the different ways you can define that, both in environmental stewardship and social sustainability. And that awareness, education, and collaboration is what is going to help us create and maintain a thriving natural world and a thriving community. Next slide, please. So this is our unofficial vision statement. We don't have one officially on our website yet, but just wanted to share a little bit of how we see how our work, what kind of future we're looking for. So we want to envision a thriving community in our region where sustainability is a shared value, where it's like second nature to reuse, refuse, repair, recycle in order to divert as much waste as possible and to save natural resources that are many of which are non-renewable. And the sustainable choices and sustainable solutions need to be accessible to all. And by fostering a culture of curiosity and care, together we will discover and invoke sustainable solutions for a healthy community and environment. And then we want to make sure it is focused on what our community needs so that it's solutions that fit what is best for North Central Washington. Next slide, please. Karen touched on this, and so did Monty. So I won't go through this too much, but just and I feel like when I made this slide, it's now I feel like it's a little too wordy, so we don't need to go through all the bullet points. But just thinking about what is a thriving natural world, or another way to think of it is how do we know if the natural world is actually thriving? So we want it the biosphere that Karen mentioned to be ecologically healthy. We need to have clean air and water. We need to shift away from non-renewable things towards renewable resources and sustainable energy. So we need to recognize that the things that causing harm or are threats to our environment and our community, we should be minimizing. Things that are causing climate change, like the use of fossil fuels, or having resources end up in the landfill when and then requiring more mining, which can cause a lot of damage, or chopping up really critical habitat into small pieces. These things should be minimized not only for the sake of the biosphere, but also for people. And again, like Karen said, people are part of the ecosystem, but it is kind of good to think about it both ways. And because we want people to be safe and to be able to experience the physical and mental health benefits of having a thriving natural world. And I think that that nature needs to be both integrated into our built environment where people are kind of dominant, but also there need to be large refugia where nature really dominates and people can go as guests. Next slide, please. I just wanted to share some more about our work in sustainable NCW in particular. We do a variety of things because our mission is kind of broad. But again, back to education is a big part of our work. So that's kind of central, fundamental. And you can kind of see I've divided it up into different things under the umbrella. So on the left is events. So that's a big way where how we educate through our annual Earth Day Fair and other events, whether they're workshops or sharing documentary films or trivia nights, things like that. And we also have a lot of resources on our website. We write blogs, we write articles in the local paper sometimes, and on social media. So we consider ourselves a sustainability resource hub. In the middle is the Waste Wizard, and if you're not familiar with it, I hope you have a chance to check it out. It is an online tool that we at Sustainable NCW created and we continually update. It's for our 2-county area, and you can use it to look up any material to see where, when, and how you can recycle, repurpose, repair, or donate. And then on the right is Towards Zero Waste. That's how that kind of describes how we get involved with festivals and events to help divert as much organic material and recyclable material from the waste stream. And we consider that valuable not only because it can sometimes divert tons of waste, but also it is a great opportunity to engage with festival attendees and increase their awareness about how easy it is and how valuable it is to do these things. And then at the bottom is a sustainable bicycle co-op, which is a fairly new program for us. It's less than 2 years old. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about it on another slide, but it is still education based, and it's hands-on education to do with bike repair and bike safety, and also having a mechanism for having donated bikes get refurbished and returned to our community, to people who need them the most. Next slide, please. So we definitely recognize that to have a thriving natural world, to do this sort of work, we can't rely on everything to be on the shoulders of individuals. Much of it needs to be done collaboratively. So I do want to mention that we collaborate a lot, and I am so thankful for our many, many partners, including many of them several of you are on the call. We've done different projects together. So collaborations, and then also really connecting decision makers to the public's voice as much as possible to get bigger impact at higher levels. A couple examples are the first two on the left: greenhouse gas inventories and climate vulnerability assessment. These are projects that Sustainable NCW, along with other important organizations, we have instigated and facilitated. So greenhouse gas inventories for Chelan County and City of Wenatchee are occurring right now. And they are where we're learning about what is the major sources of greenhouse gas in our area, so that we can use that information, have that data to then, fuel decision making on how we can do things in the future to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in our area. And then the climate vulnerability assessment is just recently completed, and it is for our 2 counties, and it is now linked on our website. I'm in the process of writing a blog about it, and we'll be doing some more publicity, but I think that the folks on this call might be very interested in it, because I urge you to have a chance to look at it. There's also an executive summary to read the shorter version. But what it is entailing is, we recognize that climate change is happening. How is it affecting our region in particular? What are the biggest impacts in our region, especially with a focus on health, and that health being defined as public health, physical, mental health, and economic health, and who is affected first and worst. So who is most vulnerable to climate change impacts? And then what are we doing about it right now to mitigate those problems, and or to build adaptive resilience, because given that we can't really stop climate change from happening. And then also ending with like suggestions and ideas of what can we do better. So I hope you have a chance to look at it. And then the last side, the other panel, is just a few other ways that we are involved with some regional projects. And I don't need to go into that. So we'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. So you've seen that image before of the vital conditions. And so first, multi-solving. I believe this is a term that's kind of a concept that's important to thriving together. And the way I would define it is, if you are working in one arena, but at the same time, it has a positive impact on other vital conditions. And so it gave me a chance to think a little bit about a few of the things that we work on, such as bike repair and safety education, and compost and recycling education, and how does that connect? And it was really interesting to think about, like, of course, they're connected to the thriving natural world, but they are connected to other aspects as well. I just want to highlight a few. I think you can kind of recognize that if you're learning bike repair and safety, or if you're learning about how and why it's valuable to compost and recycle, you're getting some lifelong learning. And that for certain people, it might inspire them to take a career path. So that could lead to meaningful work in those areas. And then obviously, like, bike repair and safety education is going to be critical for having another opportunity, another way of having reliable transportation. Wenatchee in particular, that's why we are working in this area, is that we think Wenatchee is poised to be a really large bicycle hub. on par with some of the cities in Europe. And then I really just want to highlight the middle of vital condition, belonging, and civic muscle, which I really like the idea that it is kind of central to helping connect all the other pieces and have the other things do well. Um, I think both of these types of program, bike repair and composting and recycling, um, they can help grow a belonging through a community, like a biking community, or a community through shared stewardship by learning and valuing recycling and composting. And then also, I feel like by participating in these programs, people then have more background, more awareness, more understanding. So then they have a stronger voice to talk to government officials when they see the need for change. For instance, in the biking realm, like maybe after you kind of been involved with this, you realize like, hey, I would like to see certain streets be better, safer bike routes in my town. I'm going to speak to my local government about that. Or maybe you could speak out about how the government needs to be involved with improving infrastructure to make recycling easier and more accessible to more people. Next slide, please. So I was just going to share this slide and the next slide, two examples, kind of a little bit of the work that we're doing to do with how we're trying to engage our community and work collaboratively and incrementally towards change and sustainability. So glass recycling, what do we know? Well, right now it doesn't exist in Wenatchee Valley, right? And it's kind of we're kind of sad about that because it stopped a few years ago when it was eliminated from single stream recycling. And drop-offs are extremely limited. People have dropped off in Chelan, but that facility is closed right now because of a fire a few years ago. And then there's one in Leavenworth, but it's only open 2 days a week and the capacity is very limited. So how do we get glass to be able to be recycled in this area that's, a wine and brewing area? So there's so much glass. So these different panels, I'm just kind of describing kind of the different steps. The first step kind of on the left is, we're defining that there's so many people. Every time we give a presentation, people ask, what's going on with glass? So we know it's a problem and a need. And so we've built up an informal working group of people who are pretty passionate about this and have time to kind of dig in deeper. And then the second panel, we kind of started to look at other solutions elsewhere that seem to be working. In Yakima and Walla Walla, Washington, they've done a really good job of growing and sustaining a hub and spoke model for glass, where they have glass collection events where it's super high quality glass so that it becomes very valuable, and then it makes it more so valuable that it's helps fund it to get to Portland where there's a glass smelter. So we've been kind of thinking about that idea and seeing if we can connect with theirs or if we can get our glass to Seattle via the route that the Leavenworth glass goes. So we've done some short-term solutions where we've had some like, we'll fill a few carloads and we'll shuttle the glass for you. So that's kind of the second panel. And we're really in the third panel right now. We're really excited that we have a private property owner who's willing to have a space where we can host glass recycling events in Wenatchee. We've been seeking funding. We've applied for 2 grants to pay for the infrastructure, startup costs, because it's not nothing. We need to get a trailer, we need to get some safety equipment and stuff like that. So we're getting really close. And then we're now moving towards that fourth panel where we're hoping to have a pilot event this fall. We will be engaging our community to make sure it's accessible to people, how we can improve it. And then also we can use it if it goes well as a proof of concept so that we can get the government involved because, maybe it shouldn't be entirely on the shoulders of nonprofits and a private property owner to fill the gap, but get them to say, hey, it's time for us to kind of step in and kind of be involved as well. Next slide. This is just a little bit more about our bicycle co-op. I'll just read what's on the left. In less than 2 years, Sustainable Bike Co-op has grown from a concept to boots on the ground work with underserved youth and the community, new staffing, strengthening partnerships, a future brick and mortar space, and projects funded by 2 grants. So it's been a really exciting time for us to kind of see how it has again gone from a vision to something really tangible. In the middle, you can see it says the Co-op on the Go grant. That's the grant that we're working under currently. It's allowed us to get this setup costs to get mobile bike repair going. We've done workshops at 4 middle schools in the area. So it's been great to build our relationships with the Wenatchee and the Eastmont school districts. We've been to several events like Wenatchee Pride and other events. I also have a bike corral every Saturday at the Wenatchee Valley's Farmers Market so through all this, we're trying to engage with our community and learn, how we can make it better. How can we connect with more underserved youth? And then the lower part of the slide, I'm really excited because to kind of as we're developing, and of course we're being led by curiosity and adaptability, and we did not know that we would end up getting this wonderful opportunity to partner with Wenatchee Cafe, an organization that many of you know. But we were both interested in this other grant proposal, and we realized that we really needed to do it together. It will be so much better. We'll be so much stronger together because we have different strengths and skills, and together we can really it can be a transformative. So starting this fall, Sustainable NCW and Wenatchee Cafe will be doing very much more in-depth workshops at the local high schools and middle schools. So we're going to be impacting considerably more youth, more skill building, more opportunities for social cohesion, and more people on bikes. Next slide, please. I'm getting close to wrapping up. This is just again kind of trying to bring it back to the thriving natural world, and what are we aiming towards? Well, as you probably can guess, and in many of our works, the work doesn't really ever end. There is no like finish line. It's just always kind of trying to get better and better. So just a kind of a recap on the left. Again, we want to see more people on bikes, fewer people driving. That's better for air quality, but it's also helps our community because of the mental and physical health benefits. And just how awesome it would be is if somebody's driving down the road, they expect to see bicycles everywhere. That would be awesome. And then the bottom panel, just again, we'd like to see as much waste not going to the landfill. The landfill should be the last choice, not only for organics, because organics are a huge part of if you remove them from a landfill, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions, but also other materials like construction materials, like electronics, etc. And trying to reduce consumption, especially of things like single-use plastics. And then on the right, again, just like increasing awareness and education. That image is our Waste Wizard mascot, in case you haven't seen it before. It's a magical marmot. And also through that education and awareness, having people in our community feel empowered to have a voice and speak up when they can see a need for change for the sake of our community's health and well-being. And then finally, that our sustainability is going to be incremental. We hope it's very responsive to the community, and that we're celebrating collaboration and innovation and progress along the way. Final slide, please. So if any of this is exciting or interesting to you, first of all, how can we partner with your organization if we haven't already? This is my email address if you'd like to be in touch. And if you know people or yourself would like to volunteer, we have so many volunteer opportunities, including those ones listed there. If you sign up for our newsletter, we are always sharing, sustainability information, but also volunteer opportunities and events coming up. And if you're specifically interested in our bicycle co-op volunteering, we're going to be training more people to help with repair and do other things. Email us at that email address. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Marlene. That was amazing. Yeah, and so cool to hear about all that Sustainable NCW is up to. Again, just like with Karen, if there are questions or comments or want to put some in the chat, go for that. And then we're going to jump into some small groups here in just a moment and pull that out. So love this idea of multi-solving, of course, that is threaded through. And I'm going to pass it over to Roger, who's one of the best multi-solvers I know.
Thank you, my friend Monty. Delighted to be here with everybody today. And, those presentations made me happy. I mean, we've got flower farmer aspirations and magical marmots. I mean, what could be better than that, right? And on the multi-solving piece, love both the equity focus and that cross-sectoral slide you showed, Marlene. So I'll reflect a little more on some of the themes inherent in those presentations, But first, wanted to introduce myself just a bit and then talk about one project in my community that's a multi-solve that happened, and another one that's really in process right now. And I would say in both, to connect the dots to both of the presentations we've heard, and to thrive together needs something larger. It needs a larger vision. It needs a larger network of people. So it's just delightful to see everybody here under that kind of rubric of thriving in vital conditions. Why am I still thriving today? In part, it's because of this farm. I'm from Missouri. I'm from the rural Ozarks, and no, we don't say Missouri there. I was originally born in a little town in a rural area south of Lebanon, Missouri, a town of about 20,000 in the Ozarks. That's my grandparents' farm in 1974. And I was a little boy then, and boy, when I crested that hill, that was heaven to me. And it still lives in me today because I got to love nature there, local agriculture, community. And that's really the frame of the work that I'm doing now and that resonates for me, within me, and sharing it with others. So next slide. And there I am, as a little boy on that front porch in the rural Ozarks with my sister, the unconditional love of my grandparents. Karen, I love that talk about being better ancestors, right? My grandparents were just the best people and ancestors for me. And they left that farm and me in a better condition as a result. I know that in these challenging times, we're trying to do that all together. So, I didn't realize that that picture would eventually become the structure of my work that continues today, which is I ended up being the Nature Conservancy of Missouri State Director early in my career. I was a senior executive at Audubon, done a lot of consulting. And what I've found myself doing a lot is moving from urban and rural environments, and given my background of growing up in Independence, Missouri, but spending a tremendous amount of time on my grandparents' farms, kind of being a bridge in that regard between cultures and trying to get the outcomes that I really value and I know that we all share here today. So that is foundational to me. Next slide. And that's where I live now. I don't know how many of you vacation in Missouri, right? But we're in the middle of the state, but equidistant between Kansas City and St. Louis. And I'm in Boone County. And the two projects I'm going to briefly just put on the table and flag are in this community, which has Columbia, Missouri. Monty used to live here and comes back still from time to time, is a University of Missouri. It's a classic college town. And it's just a really good place to incubate tangible things because it combines an urban environment that's very progressive with rural in the northern and southern parts of the county. And it's ecologically interesting because it's at crossroads. It's where the prairies began in northern Boone County, and in southern Boone County, it's where the Ozarks began. And the ecotone of Columbia, Missouri is right in between, and related to what I'm going to be talking about, some of the best public schools in the state. So you can multi-solve there, and a really robust health network. When I was looking at your website, it was interesting to see the concentration of healthcare in a variety of different ways there that might relate to some of the things I'm going to talk about here. So that's a little background on me and setting that stage and our community. Next slide. There are bigger forces at work in our world now that frame this out. Animate me here. Next. One is since I was on those farms, we've lost approximately 3 billion birds, according to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and other expertise. About 29% of all birds since I was on that farm in 1974 have been lost. We've lost 2.1 million farms as the farm economy gets consolidated from a corporate standpoint with ecological and social ramifications. And next animation. Childhood obesity has skyrocketed, I think, as a result, as one health metric of the kind of system that we've created. All of these things animate again all of these things are interconnected. And I think part of what we're trying to solve too in my community and talking nationally about is these things are interrelated. How do we do practical things that address them in place and then pursue policy change in a larger framework? Next slide. And so what we've landed on here started by the Missouri Department of Conservation, which is a state conservation agency that's one of my clients, working with other folks on my team, uh, is a One Health framework that's been around for a while, but we really honed it to a very specific aspects of it, which is when we say One Health, we mean healthy nature, healthy people in nature, healthy food systems and healthy food for you, and an integration with human health. And the two projects I'm just going to do the lightest touch on that have these elements include partnerships in our community between the Conservation Department, state agency, our school district, and a lot of community partners in the Missouri Foundation for Health, which is a big health conversion foundation. So that's the One Health frame we're executing here. And I think people find this pattern in a variety of ways around the country. Next slide. So what's that look like? So I help facilitate a project that's now complete. It opened in August. It started this year. It's the Boone County Nature School. And this nature school is a $6.8 million project that was a partnership with the community, our school district, the Missouri Department of Conservation, and it serves 2,200 fifth graders as its core service a year. They go out there 7 days a week coming from their schools. The curriculum ties back. They go out there, they experience nature, they experience agriculture, and it's just really inspiring, having worked on this for a number of years, to pull people together around it, raise the money for it, and engage in the community to see the response of these kids. I mean, how often do you get to go, right? Not sit in a classroom, but go like these kids on the right and do some beekeeping, right, during the day. Just really amazing anecdotes that are coming off of this school. And next slide. The One Health pattern, the campus that's next to a major conservation area, is One Health. I mean, this is how simple it is. From the nature standpoint, you're doing restoration. You're eliminating invasive exotics. You're restoring the ecosystem, and the kids are part of that, and the community's part of that. From the standpoint of agriculture, we left and transitioned to organic production, Missouri elderberries. I say Missouri elderberries because we are the leading producer of elderberries in the nation here in Missouri, and they're a native foodstuff. And that then connects to the classroom experience of the kids, which are tied to each of the ecosystems, 4 classrooms and a wet lab. And we are measuring educational and health outcomes in that school. So that project really pulled people together and has an equity component that was really unearthed, frankly, for our community, which is that this used to be the nearby used to be the site of the largest slave plantation west of the Mississippi River. And that really was a hidden history in our community. And it's been surfaced as a result of this and made evident. And African American farmers in the 1930s on submarginal land lost their land during the Great Depression. So that story has now become part of the children's education, but also part of our community's understanding. Next slide. Now we have funding from the Missouri Department of Health and Missouri Department of Conservation to work on another project that might be illustrative for your part of the world, which is this connection of nature and health, which is growing as a national movement, and utilizing tools around that you see here There's a private group called Nature Quant that can kind of score and model now and work with researchers the intersection between your equitable access to nature and your health outcomes at a public health level and an individual level, is baked into part of our project. And this is one thing I've found in this project and in other places around the country is that, having worked for a foundation client on this, there's a lot of welcoming now, at least those three public health departments leadership I've talked to, of public health being part of nature in health and framing around that. So I would just encourage you, I don't know if somebody in this group is from the public health department, or if you've got that connection, that kind of preventative care frame is really emerging, that nature and our natural ecosystems can be part of that. And Nature Quant is a GIS based tool that can help identify that. They're actually based in Oregon, so nearer to you than me. And we're pulling data layers together to frame that relationship out and tell stories about it. Next slide. Yes, I'm delighted to hear somebody's with public health and they're excited to hear about it. So happy to do that. Um, so there's also another component to this project that we've engaged a lot of community partners in, and we have funding from the Missouri Foundation for Health, and that's around lifestyle medicine. American College of Lifestyle Medicine is a group that we're collaborating with to develop, in addition to that public health frame around health and nature, to do a kind of one of a kind, and we're doing business planning for this right now, a one of a kind health clinic in a public park that would be about prevention, that would be about these six pillars, that the evidence-based pillars that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is pursuing, and framing out. And it's a growing movement around the country. And we found, because they have a Nature is Health subcommittee and a focus on that, and it's kind of their unofficial seventh pillar, that it really connects well to thriving natural environment. And so happy to share more about that as I see the medical infrastructure in your community. Next and final slide is this is the public park, 201 acre park in the community in Columbia, that One Health pattern we're set up to execute again. And in fact, we're already doing it, much like we did before the nature school opened. We started actions. And so here, what are we doing? The Missouri Department of Conservation, a 201 acre park, is a very significant sized park in an urban community, and this is in an underserved area, is why we're really working in this park. But ecologically, this is a beautiful property with a lot of topography. The Missouri Department of Conservation has done an ecological assessment of this park and an ecological management plan. We're going to be restoring that park to the best we can ecologically. We're working on a farm business incubator to make that connection from soil to cell, that bringing underserved farmers in and recruiting them and developing an incubator here. We're just at the planning stages on this right now, but activating that site related to local food and food systems. And then we've done business planning for this lifestyle nature clinic in this park. And I would just leave by saying, I don't know how many of you have heard or read about Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed Central Park. Interestingly, in the 19th century, they were doing nature prescriptions in Central Park in New York City. They were also looking at sanitation issues and a variety of health issues. We think there's an opportunity both here, the funding we've gotten for that, and in other places. Why, in an era of chronic disease, sedentary lifestyles, poor nutrition, can't we think about beginning to repurpose our parks centered around equity, related to, a lot of the Marlene, we were collaborating with a local group here that does bike trails move through this area, right? can we repurpose some of our public spaces to really think in this integrative way into the future? So that's what I've got. Sorry if I ran over a bit, Monty.
Yep, you're good. Love it. So appreciate you being here, and gives us a lot to talk about, just what's been lifted up. And so want to just maybe put folks into small groups for about just 10 minutes to get some things going and pull back out. And these are just general questions to guide it. Don't feel like you have to systematically hit all these, but what's coming up for you? Yeah, what's exciting you? And we're particular number 3. What are some other opportunities that you'd like to further based on what you're hearing from the speakers? So I think Veronica is going to put folks into small groups. Let's do it for about 10 minutes here. Gang is back. So I know you probably could have used another 20, 30 minutes. And so consider this an appetizer, as many of you know. There's going to be other opportunities, obviously, for this network on an ongoing basis, including the summit, where I think we can really continue to dive a little more deeply into some of the vital conditions. But in the next several minutes, would love for folks to put anything in the chat that, you know, felt significant that was coming up, but would love to see what brave souls would like to just come up and name something that was coming up in your small group, or that you feel moved to kind of share, either something you're excited about or an opportunity that you see.
I'll go ahead and speak up.
Please.
I just think that, yes, I think we are at a time and space where we more than ever now need to work together, you know, to for ourselves, for our organizations, for our communities, and for our environments. I think that we need to really depend more on each other and do more collaboration, more coordinating. That's always been a good practice, but more so now. That's kind of what's on my mind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We need each other and collaborating. Yeah, there's this healing part, and yeah, all these ideas around doing it within and for nature, you know, I think maybe is especially potent these days. Yeah, so thanks for kicking us off. What else?
I just loved hearing from Marlene that she heard that Cafe was also going for the same grant that they wanted to go to, and instead of being like, oh, you know, competing, they said, let's do this together and be really strong. Um, that's I love that.
Yeah. See some hearts coming out of there.
Well, I also was in a group with Marlene and Lisa, and so we were getting really excited about involving youth and, you know, the education and the volunteer opportunities. And it sounds like there's some exciting ideas, you know, from the, you know, public and nonprofit sectors that we can bring together and, you know, actually implement some projects. So we're gonna follow up on that.
That's great.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we're also working with seniors. In September, we're putting on a couple of different expos for seniors, and many of them are always looking for volunteer opportunities and opportunities to just get out of the house and get involved. And so, if you guys ever have ideas, please share them. And we're planning a couple of expos. If you wanted to be a part of that, that would be great. You know, social isolation is a really big thing. And so whatever we can do to help people be involved in their community, whatever, you know, whatever that looks like, whatever capacity that is. So working on that right now too.
Thank you for that, Lisa.
I was in a group and we talked a little bit about that the connection between public health and sort of natural resources, and I just think I'm really excited to see the sort of increased awareness of that connection, and so I really appreciate seeing social service and public health providers engaging more and more in natural resource management and conservation efforts, whether it's in planning or implementation of projects. But I think it's so powerful, and it's a really great trend to see. Even though, as Roger mentioned, it's not new. They've been doing it, you know, it's been around for a while.
Yeah. Olmsted was before his time, and thankfully we still benefit from what he left. The team.
I think the other thing that I'm thinking about is how this all connects to a meeting I attended a couple of days ago with the Okanagan Food Council, and we were over in Nespelem and hearing from some Indigenous voices around the importance of healthy soils and how that connects to healthy foods, and connecting back to our native foods and how we can use them for medicine and in all these different ways, and then also how that connects to fire and the landscape. And so anyway, it's just kind of cool to see how this all intersects. And Karen, I love your comment in the chat too.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Karen, you want to add any voice to that, or anything else is coming up for you?
You know, I really, echoing Sarah here, I loved what the example that Marlene gave of Sustainable NCW and Cafe coming together in this, shall we say, rather hyper-stressed funding environment for nonprofit organizations with the changing landscape. The temptation may be to start kind of chasing resources and opportunity for themselves, for individual organizations, right? For our own individual survival and so on and so forth. And yet what is most impactful and probably frankly more sustainable, right, is to identify, well, who else needs those resources? Who else is doing comparable work? How can we piggyback with each other and in together create a stronger proposal, because it's not relying on one little pillar, right? It's you're modeling a network of impact and a broader scope of work that's possible. And so I love that example. I think it does weave into this ecosystem example as well. I keep thinking about, we've got a cat in the neighborhood. We call him the capybara of cats because he gets on with everyone. He's yet to meet a dog that he doesn't like. It's kind of a weirdo. I love him. But I do love the image of the capybara, like, you know, walking, like riding the back of a gator. Those two are not supposed to be together. And yet this weird little fluff ball and this hungry reptile are working it out and building an ecosystem together. So I think the more we can do to be each other's capybara gator pairing, the more resilient we will be, not just in the here and now, but also modeling the things that are possible for those who follow us and want to follow our examples. So,
yeah, beautiful. I think this, you talked about stewardship. You know, I think it's really easy right now to get into a scarcity mindset, and for not-for-profits and other sectors to kind of try to really hunker down and compete. And I think the countercultural move, and I think this values of the Thriving Together, is to say, let's look more at an abundance mindset. Let's frame this so that our strategies, our initiatives, that more folks can see themselves in. And I think multi-solving is also about thinking about the short term, who's struggling and suffering most, whether it's food insecurity or not having access to green space, and what is it that we created those conditions for everybody to thrive. And so there's so many beautiful examples, just, you know, in what the three presenters shared with us, of opportunities to multi-solve. And Veronica and Stacy and I were just talking, I think as we move towards a summit, these kind of learning sessions are really appetizers for us to say, what is it that we want to put some of our action, some of our energy towards as we move forward? So again, just big shout out and thanks to Karen, Marlene, and Roger for setting us up for that. And yeah, Veronica, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Monty, and thank you to our presenters for collaborating and sharing your efforts that you have going on across the region, and in Missouri as well. Thank you for being here. So we'd like to just wrap up and share a little bit more on what we have going on with the network. So we are already in July. I can't believe that. Our grant has opened up. So we have the Vital Conditions grant that opened up July 1st, and we highly encourage network partners to apply for these funds. The application will close August 31st. And this is our third learning session. So we had two previous learning sessions on food as a multi-solver featuring Maria Hines. and Belonging and Civic Muscle one in April. So we have those reports, recordings, and resources available on our website. I encourage you all to check those out if you did not join us back then. In September, we will be jumping into a tribal learning journey with one of our board members. And come October, we hope that you all have been saving the date for October 22nd to join us at our second annual Thriving Together Summit, which will take place at the Wenatchee Convention Center this year. We will be pushing out registration in early next month, so be on the lookout for that. And with that being said, thank you all for joining us. You can expect this final report includes a recording, the slide deck, and resources from our presenters available on our website shortly after this learning session. So thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Full